Janelle stood in front of the full-length mirror, smoothing the fabric of the red dress against her hips. The dress fit perfectly, hugging every curve, making her feel beautiful for the first time in weeks. But the reflection showed more than just a woman dressed for an evening out. It showed the exhaustion in her eyes, the tightness in her jaw, the way her shoulders carried the weight of 3 weeks of silence. Behind her, Trevor leaned against the bedroom door frame, his arms crossed over his chest. His 6'3" frame blocked the only exit. He wore his gray business suit, the one he'd worn to the office that morning, still pressed and perfect. Everything about Trevor was always perfect. Controlled. Calculated. "You're not going," he said. His voice was flat, emotionless, the same tone he used in board meetings when he'd made a final decision. Janelle turned to face him, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for her earrings on the dresser. "We've been over this. And my answer hasn't changed." Trevor shifted his weight, his jaw clenched. "That dress isn't leaving this house. And neither are you." The words hung in the air between them, heavy and suffocating. Janelle had heard him say many things over their 5 years of marriage, but this was different. This wasn't the man who had proposed to her on a beach in Hawaii. This wasn't the man who had held her hand through her mother's funeral. This was a stranger wearing her husband's face. "You can't keep me here," Janelle said, her voice steadier than she felt. She picked up her clutch purse from the bed, checking inside for her phone and keys. "Watch me." Trevor's eyes were dark, stormy. There was something desperate in them, something that made Janelle's heart ache even as anger burned in her chest. The bedroom suddenly felt too small. The California king bed that usually seemed so spacious now felt like it took up all the oxygen in the room. The cream-colored walls that Janelle had chosen when they first moved into this mansion now felt like they were closing in. Janelle had spent 3 weeks trying to understand what had happened to her marriage. 3 weeks of Trevor coming home late, eating dinner in silence, sleeping on his side of the bed without so much as a good night. 3 weeks of feeling like a ghost in her own home. And now, when she'd finally decided to do something for herself, to attend her college reunion and reconnect with old friends, he was standing there treating her like she was his possession instead of his partner. "Move, Trevor," Janelle said, taking a step toward the door. He didn't budge. "Call Rita. Tell her you're not coming." "No. Janelle." The way he said her name made it sound like a warning. "I'm asking you not to go." "You're not asking. You're demanding. There's a difference." Janelle clutched her purse tighter, her knuckles going white. "And I'm tired of you thinking you can just tell me what to do." "This isn't about control," Trevor said, but the words sounded hollow even to him. "Then what is it about?" Janelle took another step forward, close enough now that she could smell his cologne, the same scent he'd worn since the day they met. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like control." Trevor's face hardened. "You want to go see him. That's what this is really about." "Him?" Janelle felt her frustration boiling over. "Brandon? Is that what this is about? You think I'm trying to see Brandon? He's going to be there. Rita told me when I called her." "You called Rita?" Janelle's voice rose. "You called my friend behind my back?" "I needed to know what I was dealing with," Trevor said, his voice rising to match hers. "And she confirmed it. Brandon's going to be at this reunion." Janelle laughed, but there was no humor in it. It was the sound of something breaking. "Brandon, you're serious right now?" "Brandon, who I dated for 3 months in college. Brandon, who I haven't seen in over 6 years. That Brandon." "You don't understand," Trevor started, but Janelle cut him off. "No, you don't understand." She pointed at him, her fingers shaking. "You don't understand that I'm not your property. You don't understand that marriage is supposed to be about trust. You don't understand that for 3 weeks, you've treated me like I don't even exist in this house, and the first real conversation we have is you telling me I can't leave." "I'm trying to protect us," Trevor said, his voice cracking slightly. It was the first real emotion Janelle had heard from him in weeks. "Protect us from what?" Janelle demanded. "From me having friends? From me having a life outside of being Mrs. Trevor Morrison?" The name felt bitter on her tongue. Mrs. Trevor Morrison. The wife of the billionaire CEO. The woman who attended charity galas and smiled for cameras and sat quietly while her husband made all the decisions. When had she become that person? When had she stopped being Janelle Foster, the girl who had dreamed of designing buildings that would touch the sky? Trevor's shoulders sagged slightly. For a moment he looked lost, vulnerable. But then his face hardened again and he straightened up, retreating behind the walls he'd built around himself. "I'm not moving from this door." "Then I guess we have a problem," Janelle said. She walked to the bed and sat down on the edge, still wearing the red dress, still holding her purse. If he wanted to play this game, she could play too. Because I'm not changing my mind. They stared at each other across the bedroom, two people who used to know each other better than anyone, now strangers who shared a bed and a last name and nothing else. Outside, the sun was starting to set. Janelle's reunion started in an hour. Rita would be wondering where she was. Her old classmates would be gathering at the hotel ballroom downtown, laughing and sharing stories about their college days, about the dreams they'd chased and the lives they'd built. And Janelle would be here, trapped in a mansion that felt more like a prison, wearing a dress that her husband had decided wasn't allowed to leave, married to a man who had forgotten how to talk to her, how to trust her, how to love her the way love was supposed to feel. The silence stretched between them, 3 weeks of unspoken words and unresolved pain filling the space where their marriage used to be. Janelle looked at the red dress in the mirror again. It was beautiful. She'd bought it last week, imagining how confident she would feel wearing it, how good it would feel to be herself again, even just for one evening. But now it felt like a symbol of everything wrong between them. When did we stop talking to each other? Janelle asked quietly, her fight draining away, replaced by exhaustion. When did we stop being partners? Trevor didn't answer. He just stood there, blocking the door, his face unreadable. And Janelle realized that this moment, right here, would determine everything. Either they would find a way back to each other, or this would be the beginning of the end. The red dress wasn't just about a reunion. It was about freedom, about trust, about whether their marriage could survive what it had become. And right now, looking at the man she'd promised to spend her life with, Janelle wasn't sure it could. Have you ever felt invisible in your own home? Have you watched someone you love become a stranger right before your eyes? If this story is hitting close to home, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Your story matters, and you're not alone in feeling this way. 3 weeks ago, everything had been different. Not perfect, but different. Janelle could pinpoint the exact moment when the walls went up, when Trevor stopped looking at her like she was his wife and started looking at her like she was a problem he needed to solve. It was the annual Morrison Industries Gala, held at the Four Seasons downtown. Janelle had worn a blue dress that night, something elegant but not too flashy. She'd learned over the years how to dress for Trevor's business events. How to smile at the right people, how to make small talk with investors and board members, how to be the perfect CEO's wife. The ballroom had been full of important people, the kind who moved money and made decisions that affected thousands of lives. Janelle had done her part, standing by Trevor's side, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, nodding along to conversations about quarterly profits and market expansion. Then she'd seen Gerald Banks across the room. Gerald worked in the legal department at Morrison Industries. They'd met several times at company functions, always keeping their conversations professional and brief. That night, Gerald had approached her while Trevor was deep in conversation with potential investors. "Mrs. Morrison," Gerald had said, smiling warmly. "You look lovely this evening." "Thank you, Gerald. Please call me Janelle." She'd returned his smile, grateful for a face that didn't immediately want to talk business. They chatted for maybe 15 minutes. Gerald had just returned from a vacation in Costa Rica and was showing her photos on his phone. Beautiful beaches, lush rainforests, colorful birds. Janelle had laughed at a picture of Gerald attempting to surf and failing spectacularly. It was innocent. Completely, utterly innocent. But Preston Walsh had seen it differently. Preston was Trevor's business partner, a man who'd helped build Morrison Industries from a small startup into the billion-dollar empire it was today. Preston was also a divorced man who saw threats everywhere, who believed that women were fundamentally untrustworthy, who had spent the last 5 years since his divorce warning Trevor about the dangers of being too comfortable in marriage. Janelle hadn't known that Preston had been watching her interaction with Gerald. She hadn't known that later that evening, after the gala ended, Preston had pulled Trevor aside in the parking garage. She only knew because she'd overheard part of their conversation. She'd been waiting in Trevor's car, touching up her makeup, when their voices had carried through the underground garage. "I'm just saying, as your friend, you might want to keep an eye on that," Preston's voice had echoed off the concrete walls. "Keep an eye on what?" Trevor had sounded confused. "Your wife. She was pretty cozy with Banks tonight. Very friendly. Very touchy." "Gerald Banks?" "They were just talking, Preston. I know what I saw. And I know how these things start. My ex-wife started with just talking too." Janelle had frozen in the car, her lipstick forgotten. She'd wanted to get out, to confront Preston, to defend herself. But something had stopped her. Maybe it was the way Trevor had gone quiet. Maybe it was the sick feeling in her stomach that told her this was about to change everything. "I'm sure it's nothing," Trevor had finally said, but his voice had been uncertain. Maybe. But maybe not. Just watch, brother. Just watch. That night, Trevor had been quiet on the drive home. Janelle had tried to talk to him to ask what was wrong, but he'd brushed her off. Said he was tired. Said it had been a long evening. The next morning he'd left for work before she woke up. No goodbye. No note. Just gone. And it had been like that every day since. Cold. Distant. Silent. Janelle had tried everything. She tried cooking his favorite meals. She tried asking him directly what was wrong. She tried giving him space. Nothing worked. Trevor had built a wall between them and she didn't have the tools to knock it down. Now, sitting on the edge of their bed in the red dress, Janelle understood what had happened. Preston's poison had taken root. Trevor, who had always been confident, who had built an empire through calculated risks and smart decisions, had let fear take control. That's what this is about, isn't it? Janelle said, breaking the silence. Preston. That night at the gala. He said something to you about Gerald. Trevor's face twitched, a tell that Janelle had learned to read over the years. This isn't about Preston. Liar. Janelle stood up, facing him fully. You've been different since that night. Cold. Distant. And I've been trying to figure out what I did wrong, what I said, what I could possibly have done to make you shut me out like this. But it wasn't me, was it? It was Preston putting ideas in your head. Preston is my friend, Trevor said, but the words lacked conviction. Preston is a bitter, divorced man who thinks every marriage is doomed because his failed, Janelle countered. And you let him convince you that I'm what, having an affair? That I'm interested in Gerald Banks. You were laughing with him. Touching his arm. We were looking at vacation photos. Janelle's voice was incredulous. He showed me pictures of Costa Rica. That's it. That's the big betrayal you've been punishing me for. Trevor looked away, his jaw working. You don't understand what it's like. Then explain it to me, Janelle said, her voice softening slightly. Talk to me, Trevor. Actually talk to me. We used to be able to talk about anything. What happened to us? My father lost everything, Trevor said suddenly, the words tumbling out. Did I ever tell you that? Before he died, my mother left him. She'd been having an affair with his business partner. She took half of everything he'd built. He never recovered. He died 2 years later, broken and alone. Janelle's anger deflated slightly. Trevor rarely talked about his father. You told me he passed when you were in college. You didn't tell me about your mother. Because it's humiliating, Trevor said, his voice rough. Because I watched my father crumble. Because I swore I would never let that happen to me. And then Preston said those things and I started seeing signs everywhere. You on your phone, smiling at texts. You getting dressed up to go out with friends. You talking about wanting to go back to architecture, wanting your own career again. Those aren't signs of an affair, Trevor. Those are signs of me trying to have a life. Janelle felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Those are signs of me trying to be more than just your wife. I know, Trevor said quietly. I know that. In my head, I know that. But in here. He pressed his fist against his chest, over his heart. In here I'm terrified. I'm terrified of losing you. I'm terrified of ending up like my father. So you try to control me, Janelle said. You try to keep me locked in this house, away from anyone who might threaten what you think you own. But Trevor, you can't own a person. You can't own me. I don't want to own you, Trevor said, and for the first time Janelle heard real pain in his voice. I just don't want to lose you. Then stop pushing me away, Janelle said. Stop shutting me out. Stop listening to Preston's poison and start listening to me. Trevor looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in 3 weeks. She could see the war happening behind his eyes, fear battling with love, control battling with trust. I don't know how, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know how to stop being afraid. And there it was. The truth they'd been dancing around for 3 weeks. Trevor Morrison, the billionaire CEO who commanded boardrooms and made million-dollar decisions without blinking, was afraid. Afraid of a ghost from his past. Afraid of becoming his father. Afraid of loving someone so much that losing them would destroy him. Janelle's heart broke a little. But it also hardened with resolve. Because she couldn't fix his fear. She couldn't heal his childhood trauma. She could support him, love him, stand by him. But she couldn't save him from himself. I need you to move from that door, Janelle said quietly. I need you to let me make my own choices even if they scare you. Trevor stood there, his hand on the door frame, his entire body tense with the weight of the decision before him. Outside, the sun had set completely. The reunion was starting. Time was running out not just for tonight but for them. Trevor's mind drifted back to a different time, a different version of themselves. 7 years ago, before the mansion, before the billions, before fear had poisoned everything good between them. He'd met Janelle at a coffee shop near the university. He'd been working on a business plan, papers spread across a corner table, trying to figure out how to turn his small tech startup into something real. She'd been studying for an architecture exam, blueprints and textbooks covering her own table near the window. Their eyes had met when they both reached for the last blueberry muffin in the display case. They'd laughed. He'd insisted she take it. She'd insisted they split it. They'd ended up talking for 3 hours, the muffin forgotten, their work forgotten, everything forgotten except the easy connection between them. Janelle had been full of fire back then. She talked about the buildings she wanted to design, structures that would change skylines and change lives. Her eyes had lit up when she described her vision of affordable housing that didn't sacrifice beauty or dignity. She'd wanted to prove that architecture could be both functional and inspiring, that everyone deserved to live in spaces that made them feel human. Trevor had fallen in love with her passion before he'd fallen in love with her. Or maybe they'd happened at the same time. He couldn't remember anymore. "What are you thinking about?" Janelle asked, pulling him back to the present. She was still sitting on the bed, still wearing that red dress, still waiting for him to make a choice. "The day we met," Trevor said honestly. "The coffee shop. The muffin." A ghost of a smile touched Janelle's lips. "You were so serious. All business plans and projections. I thought you were way too intense for me. And I thought you were the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen," Trevor said. "I thought you were going to change the world." The smile faded from Janelle's face. "That was before I became your wife. Before I gave up my dreams to support yours." The words hit Trevor like a physical blow. "You didn't give up your dreams. You chose to support the business." "Did I choose? Or did you expect it?" Janelle stood up, crossing to the window. The city lights sparkled in the distance. Millions of lives being lived, millions of people making their own choices. "When you needed help with Morrison Industries, when you were working 20-hour days and couldn't do it alone, I stepped in. I put my architecture degree on hold. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd go back to it once the company was stable." "You could have gone back," Trevor said, but even as the words left his mouth, he knew they were weak. "When?" Janelle turned to face him. "When you needed me to host investor dinners? When you needed me to travel to conferences? When you needed me to be the face of Morrison Industries at charity events? You built an empire, Trevor. And I'm proud of you. I really am. But I built it too. I just don't get my name on the building." Trevor felt something shift inside him. He'd never thought about it that way. In his mind, he'd been providing for them, building something that would secure their future. He'd thought Janelle was happy being part of his success. He'd never stopped to ask if she missed her own dreams. "I didn't know you felt that way," he said quietly. "Because we stopped talking," Janelle said. "We stopped being partners who shared everything and became two people who live in the same house and sleep in the same bed but don't actually know each other anymore." "I know you," Trevor protested. "Do you?" Janelle challenged. "Do you know that I wake up sometimes at 3 in the morning and look at old architecture sketches on my laptop? Do you know that I drive past buildings downtown and imagine how I would have designed them differently? Do you know that sometimes I feel so invisible that I wonder if I disappeared, would anyone even notice besides the staff wondering who was supposed to approve their time cards?" Each word was a knife, cutting through Trevor's defenses. He'd been so focused on his own fear of losing her that he hadn't seen how he'd already lost her in the ways that mattered. "This reunion," Janelle continued, "isn't about Brandon. It isn't about me trying to escape you or our marriage. It's about me wanting to remember who I was before I became Mrs. Morrison. Rita and my other friends, they knew me when I had dreams of my own. They knew the version of me that believed I could make a difference in the world. I need to connect with that person again, Trevor. I need to remember that she existed." "She still exists," Trevor said, finally moving away from the door. He walked toward Janelle, stopping a few feet away. "That woman is still in there. I see her sometimes when you think I'm not looking. When you're sketching on napkins at restaurants. When you stop to photograph interesting buildings. She's still there." "Then why won't you let her breathe?" Janelle asked, her voice breaking. "Why won't you let me be more than just your wife?" Trevor had no answer. Or rather, he had the answer but didn't want to admit it. He'd kept Janelle small because small meant safe. If she didn't have her own career, her own identity, her own life outside of him, then she couldn't leave. She couldn't choose something or someone else over him. But that kind of love wasn't love at all. It was possession. It was fear dressed up as protection. "Tell me about Rita," Trevor said, trying to change the subject, trying to buy time to process everything Janelle had said. You know Rita, Janelle said, surprised by the shift. She's been my best friend since freshman year. She was my roommate for 3 years. I know the basic facts, Trevor said. But tell me about her. Really tell me. What's she doing now? Janelle studied him warily, unsure if this was a trap. But something in Trevor's face looked genuine, so she decided to answer. She's a civil engineer. She works for the city designing infrastructure projects. Bridges, water systems, things like that. She got married 2 years ago to a man named Anthony. They have a daughter, Zoe, who just turned 1. And she organized this reunion? She's always been the organizer. She planned every group project in college, every road trip, every birthday party. Janelle's face softened with affection. She's the kind of person who makes things happen. I've always admired that about her. Who else will be there? Trevor asked. Besides Rita and Brandon. Are we really doing this? Janelle asked. You asking me about my friends like you care? I do care, Trevor said, and he meant it. I've been so caught up in my own head that I stopped paying attention to your life. That's not fair to you. So tell me, who will be at this reunion? Janelle hesitated, then started talking. There's Simone, she was in most of my architecture classes. She works for a firm in Boston now, does high-rise residential design. And Terrence, he studied urban planning, now he works for a nonprofit helping cities develop affordable housing. Claire was our study group leader, she's teaching architecture at UCLA. Marcus. She paused, catching herself. Actually, Marcus isn't coming. He moved to London. Trevor listened, really listened, as Janelle described her college friends. These were people who had known her when she was still becoming herself, when her dreams were loud and her possibilities endless. These were people who represented a version of Janelle that Trevor had never met, a version that existed before him. And he realized that he was jealous. Not of Brandon or any romantic threat. He was jealous of the past, of the version of Janelle that didn't need him, that was complete all on her own. I want to meet them, Trevor said suddenly. Your friends? I want to know the people who knew you before you knew me. Janelle blinked. You want to come to the reunion? If you'll let me, Trevor said. I don't want to control you, Janelle. I know that's what I've been doing, but I don't want to be that person. I want to be your partner again. And partners show up for each other. You spent 3 weeks ignoring me, Janelle said, her voice hard. You stood in front of that door telling me I couldn't leave. And now you want to come with me? I know I don't deserve it, Trevor said. I know I've been terrible. I know I've let Preston's poison and my own fear turn me into someone you shouldn't have to tolerate. But I'm asking you to give me a chance. Let me come to this reunion. Let me see the world through your eyes for once. Janelle stared at him, searching his face for signs of manipulation, for the catch that had to be coming. But all she saw was a man who looked tired and scared and sincere. This isn't a fix, she said finally. You coming to one reunion doesn't solve 3 weeks of silence. It doesn't solve years of me putting my life on hold. It doesn't solve the fact that you still don't trust me. I know, Trevor said. But maybe it's a start. Maybe it's the first step toward remembering how to be us again. Janelle looked at the clock on the nightstand. They were already 30 minutes late. If they were going to do this, they needed to decide now. She thought about the red dress, about what it represented. Freedom. Independence. A refusal to be controlled. But maybe it could represent something else too. Maybe it could represent a chance, a bridge back to each other, a willingness to try again even when everything felt broken. If you come, Janelle said slowly, you don't get to act jealous. You don't get to stake your claim or make comments about Brandon or anyone else. You're there as my husband, yes, but also as someone who's trying to learn about a part of my life you've ignored. I can do that, Trevor said. And when we get home we have a real conversation. About everything. About your father, about Preston, about my career, about what we want this marriage to actually be instead of what it's become. Agreed. Janelle took a deep breath. This felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure if there was water below or rocks. But staying in this bedroom, staying in this stalemate, wasn't an option either. Go change, she said. Put on something nice. We're already late. Trevor's face flooded with relief. He moved toward the closet, then stopped and turned back to Janelle. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Janelle said. This is your one chance, Trevor. If you mess this up, if you go back to being controlling or cold or distant, I'm done. I mean it. I'm done sacrificing who I am for who you need me to be. Trevor nodded, understanding the weight of what she was saying. This wasn't just about tonight. This was about their entire future together. As he changed into a dark blue suit, Janelle looked at herself in the mirror one more time. The red dress still looked beautiful. But now it meant something different. It wasn't a symbol of rebellion or escape. It was a symbol of hope, of the possibility that two people who had forgotten how to see each other might find their way back. She just hoped it wasn't too late. The drive to the hotel was silent, but it was a different kind of silence than the past 3 weeks. This wasn't the cold, punishing silence of unspoken anger. This was the careful silence of two people trying to figure out how to talk to each other again. Trevor drove, his hands tight on the steering wheel of his black Mercedes. Janelle sat in the passenger seat, watching the city lights blur past the window. She'd made this drive 1,000 times to various events and functions across the city, but tonight felt different. Tonight felt like it mattered in a way that charity galas and investor dinners never had. "I'm nervous," Trevor admitted, breaking the silence as they pulled into the hotel parking garage. "You're never nervous," Janelle said, surprised. "You've given presentations to rooms full of investors worth more than most people will ever see in their lifetime. You've negotiated billion-dollar deals. What could possibly make you nervous about meeting my college friends?" "Those things are business," Trevor said, finding a parking spot on the 3rd level. "I know how to do business. This is personal. These people knew you before I did. They have history with you that I'm not part of. And I'm walking in as the husband who's been failing you." Janelle turned to look at him. The parking garage lighting cast shadows across his face, making him look older, more vulnerable than usual. "They don't know about the last 3 weeks. They don't know about our problems. To them, you're just my husband who decided to come along." "But you know," Trevor said quietly. "You know what I've done. You know how I've treated you. And you're still giving me this chance. I don't want to waste it." There was something raw in his voice, something that reminded Janelle of why she'd fallen in love with him in the first place. Underneath the CEO, underneath the billionaire, underneath the man who'd let fear turn him into someone unrecognizable, there was still the person who had split a muffin with her in a coffee shop and talked for hours about dreams and possibilities. "Then don't waste it," Janelle said simply. She opened her door and stepped out into the parking garage, smoothing down her red dress. The air was cooler here, away from the heated car, and she shivered slightly. Trevor was beside her in an instant, shrugging off his suit jacket and draping it over her shoulders. It was a simple gesture, one he'd done hundreds of times before, but tonight it felt significant. Like a small step back toward being the kind of partners who took care of each other without thinking about it. They walked to the elevator in silence, Trevor's hand hovering near the small of Janelle's back but not quite touching, as if he was afraid to presume that kind of intimacy. The elevator doors opened and they stepped inside. Trevor pressed the button for the lobby level. "How do I look?" Janelle asked, checking her reflection in the elevator's mirrored walls. "Beautiful," Trevor said immediately. "You always look beautiful. But tonight, in that dress, you look like the woman I met 7 years ago. Confident. Powerful. Ready to take on the world." Janelle met his eyes in the reflection. "I want to be her again. I want to remember what it feels like to be confident in who I am, not just confident in being your wife." "You'll get there," Trevor said. "I'll help you get there. Whatever you need." The elevator doors opened, revealing the hotel lobby. It was elegant, all marble floors and crystal chandeliers. A sign near the reception desk pointed toward the ballroom where the reunion was being held. Janelle could hear music and laughter drifting down the hallway. "Ready?" she asked Trevor. "No," he admitted. "But let's do it anyway." They walked down the hallway, Janelle's heels clicking on the marble floor. With each step, she felt herself transforming. The weight of the past 3 weeks didn't disappear, but it shifted somehow, became something she was carrying rather than something that was crushing her. The ballroom doors were open. Inside, Janelle could see dozens of people, many of whom she recognized immediately even after 6 years. There was Rita standing near the bar, her natural hair styled in beautiful locks that fell past her shoulders. She wore a green dress and was laughing at something her husband Anthony was saying. There was Simone, tall and elegant in a yellow jumpsuit, talking animatedly to a group near the DJ booth. And Terrence, looking exactly the same as he had in college except for a neatly trimmed beard, was showing someone photos on his phone. Janelle. Rita spotted them first, her face lighting up with genuine joy. She practically ran across the ballroom, pulling Janelle into a tight hug. "Girl, I was starting to think you weren't coming. I texted you like 5 times. "I know, I'm sorry," Janelle said, hugging her friend back. "We got held up. Rita, you remember Trevor?" "Of course," Rita said, turning to Trevor with a warm smile. She extended her hand and Trevor shook it. "Good to see you, Trevor." Glad you could make it. Thanks for having me, Trevor said, and Janelle was relieved to hear that his voice sounded genuine, not forced or fake. I've heard so much about these college reunion plans. Janelle's been excited for weeks. Well, we're glad you're both here, Rita said. She linked her arm through Janelle's. Come on, there's so many people who want to see you. Simone was just asking about you, and Terrence brought photos from that spring break trip we took to New Orleans, remember? As Rita led them deeper into the ballroom, Janelle felt Trevor's presence beside her like a question mark. He was trying, she could see that. He smiled when he was introduced to people, shook hands, made appropriate small talk. But there was a stiffness to him, a carefulness that suggested he was operating outside his comfort zone. And this is Brandon, Rita said, stopping in front of a man who was talking to Terrence. Brandon, you remember Janelle, right? Brandon turned, and Janelle saw Trevor's entire body tense beside her. But Brandon's face broke into a friendly smile, completely devoid of any romantic interest or hidden agenda. Janelle, wow, it's been years, Brandon said, giving her a brief, friendly hug. You look great. How've you been? Good, really good, Janelle said. She turned to Trevor, who was doing his best to keep his face neutral. Brandon, this is my husband, Trevor. Pleased to meet you, Brandon said, extending his hand. Trevor shook it, his grip probably a little firmer than necessary. Janelle and I go way back. We were in the same history class freshman year, completely bombed the midterm together. I think we both got D's, Janelle laughed. We had to beg Professor Chen to let us do extra credit. That's right, Brandon grinned at the memory. Then he pulled out his phone. Hey, let me show you guys something. He pulled up a photo of 3 young children, all with bright smiles and missing teeth. These are my kids. Twins who just turned 7 and a 5-year-old. They're the reason I almost didn't make it tonight. Soccer practice ran late. They're beautiful, Janelle said, looking at the photos. She glanced at Trevor and saw some of the tension leave his shoulders. Brandon wasn't a threat. He was just an old friend with a whole life of his own. My wife couldn't make it tonight, Brandon continued. She's at home with the kids. But she told me to take lots of photos so she could see everyone. She loves hearing my college stories. They chatted for a few more minutes about kids and careers and how strange it was to be in their 30s when it felt like college was just yesterday. Trevor gradually relaxed, even laughing at a story Brandon told about a disastrous group project where everyone had accidentally worked on different topics. As the evening progressed, Janelle found herself genuinely enjoying the reunion. She talked to old classmates about their lives, their careers, their families. She laughed at stories she'd forgotten, remembered inside jokes that had seemed so important back then. And Trevor stayed by her side, not hovering or controlling, but genuinely participating. He asked Simone about her architecture work, seemed genuinely interested when she described a recent project. He talked to Terrence about urban planning challenges, bringing up issues Morrison Industries had faced when developing property in underserved neighborhoods. Your husband is pretty cool, Rita whispered to Janelle when they found themselves alone at the bar getting drinks. I always thought he might be one of those stuffy billionaire types, but he's actually really down to earth. Janelle smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. He has his moments. Rita studied her friend's face. Everything okay with you too? You seem a little tense. We're working through some things, Janelle admitted. Marriage is complicated. Girl, tell me about it, Rita said. Anthony and I just had a huge fight last week about his mother. She keeps dropping by unannounced and I'm trying to set boundaries and he thinks I'm being difficult. It's a whole thing. How did you resolve it? Janelle asked, genuinely curious. We talked, Rita said simply. Like really talked. Not just surface level stuff but the deep issues underneath. Turns out he was feeling caught between his mom and me, and I was feeling like he wasn't prioritizing our family. Once we actually said all that out loud, it was easier to find a compromise. Just talked, Janelle repeated. That's simple. Simple doesn't mean easy, Rita said, squeezing her friend's hand. But it's worth it. You guys will figure it out. Janelle hoped she was right. She looked across the ballroom and found Trevor talking to a group that included Brandon and Terrence. He was smiling, relaxed, more like the man she'd married than the stranger he'd become over the past 3 weeks. But one good evening didn't erase 3 weeks of silence. It didn't erase years of her slowly disappearing into the role of Mrs. Morrison while Janelle Foster got buried deeper and deeper. As if sensing her thoughts, Trevor looked up and met her eyes across the room. He smiled, a real smile that made the corners of his eyes crinkle. Then he excused himself from the group and walked over to her and Rita at the bar. Mind if I steal my wife for a dance? He asked Rita. Please do, Rita said, winking at Janelle. It's a slow song. Very romantic. Trevor extended his hand to Janelle. She hesitated for just a moment, then took it. He led her to the dance floor where several other couples were already swaying to the music. Trevor pulled her close, one hand on her waist, the other holding her hand. They moved together to the music, and for a moment, Janelle let herself relax into his arms. This was familiar. This was comfortable. This was the version of them that had worked before everything got complicated. "Thank you for tonight," Trevor said quietly, his mouth near her ear. "For letting me come. For introducing me to your friends. For giving me a chance to see this part of your life." "You're welcome," Janelle said. "Brandon seems like a good guy," Trevor continued. "I was an idiot for being jealous." "Yes, you were," Janelle agreed. There was no point in sugarcoating it. Trevor was quiet for a moment, then said, "I need to tell you something. When Preston said those things about you and Gerald, part of me knew he was wrong. Part of me knew he was just projecting his own failed marriage onto us. But I let him plant those seeds anyway because it was easier than dealing with my real fear." "Which is what?" Janelle asked, pulling back slightly to look at his face. "That I don't deserve you," Trevor admitted. "That one day you're going to wake up and realize you gave up your dreams for mine, and you're going to resent me for it. That you're going to leave and I'll have no one to blame but myself." Janelle felt her throat tighten. This was the most honest Trevor had been with her in months, maybe years. "I won't lie and say I haven't thought about it. About what my life would look like if I'd made different choices. But Trevor, marriage isn't about one person giving up everything for the other person. It's supposed to be both of you building something together." "I know that now," Trevor said. "Or I'm starting to understand it anyway. I got so caught up in building the business and making sure we were financially secure, that I forgot to make sure we were emotionally secure. I forgot that you're not just my wife. You're Janelle, a person with your own dreams and needs and identity." "I want to go back to architecture," Janelle said suddenly. The words had been building inside her all night, and now they came out in a rush. "I want to take classes, update my credentials, actually use my degree. I want to design buildings again. I want to remember what it feels like to create something that's mine." She watched Trevor's face carefully, looking for signs of resistance, for the walls to go back up. But instead he smiled. "Then you should. Whatever you need. Classes, a home office, connections in the industry. I'll support you however I can." "Just like that?" Janelle asked, not quite believing it could be this easy. "Just like that," Trevor confirmed. "I mean it, Janelle. I don't want you to be just Mrs. Morrison anymore. I want you to be Janelle Morrison, the architect who also happens to be married to me. Or Janelle Foster Morrison. Or just Janelle Foster if that's what you prefer. However you want to do this." Janelle felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. This was what she'd been needing to hear, not just tonight but for years. "I think I'd like to be Janelle Foster Morrison," she said softly. "Keep both parts of who I am." "Then that's who you'll be," Trevor said. He pulled her closer, and they continued to dance, holding each other in a way they hadn't in far too long. But even as Janelle let herself enjoy this moment, she knew they weren't done. One conversation, one dance, one good evening didn't fix everything. They had years of patterns to unlearn, years of resentment and fear and miscommunication to work through. The song ended and another began, something more upbeat. The mood in the ballroom shifted, people laughing and talking louder as the night wore on. "I need some air," Janelle said. "Want to step outside for a minute?" "Sure," Trevor said. They made their way through the crowd, stopping briefly to say goodbye to Rita and promise to get together soon. Then they slipped out a side door that led to a balcony overlooking the city. The night air was cool, refreshing after the warmth of the crowded ballroom. Janelle leaned against the railing, looking out at the lights spread below them. "I was really going to leave tonight," she said quietly. "If you hadn't moved from that door, if you hadn't been willing to talk, I was going to pack a bag and go stay with Rita for a while." Trevor stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "I know. And part of me still thinks maybe I should," Janelle continued. "Because tonight was good, but I don't know if it's enough. I don't know if we can really fix what's broken between us." "We can," Trevor said, and there was conviction in his voice. "It won't be easy and it won't happen overnight. But we can. If we're both willing to try." "Are you?" Janelle asked, turning to face him. "Really willing to try? Because trying means more than just saying the right words tonight. It means therapy, probably. It means you dealing with your father's issues and your fear. It means you learning to trust me again, really trust me, not just say you do while watching my every move." "I'm willing," Trevor said. "I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm asking for one anyway. Let me prove to you that I can be better. Let me prove that I can be the partner you need, the partner you deserve. Janelle studied his face in the dim light from the ballroom. She saw sincerity there, but she also saw fear. And she understood, maybe for the first time, that Trevor's fear wasn't going to disappear overnight. It was something he would have to work on, something they would both have to navigate together. Okay, she said finally. We can try. But Trevor, I need you to hear me. This is your one chance. If you go back to being controlling, if you shut me out again, if you let Preston or anyone else poison your mind about me, I'm done. I won't live the rest of my life feeling like a prisoner in my own marriage. You won't have to, Trevor promised. I'm going to do better. I'm going to be better. Starting now. They stood there on the balcony for a long moment, two people trying to find their way back to each other, trying to remember why they'd chosen each other in the first place. Inside the ballroom, the music played on. People laughed and danced and celebrated friendships that had endured the test of time. And on the balcony, Janelle and Trevor took the first real step toward rebuilding what they'd almost lost. It wasn't a solution. It wasn't a happy ending. But it was a beginning. The drive home was different from the drive to the reunion. This time, the silence felt comfortable, almost companionable. Janelle sat with Trevor's jacket still draped over her shoulders, watching the city lights give way to the quieter streets of their upscale neighborhood. When they pulled into the circular driveway of their mansion, Janelle felt the weight of reality settling back onto her shoulders. The reunion had been a bubble, a few hours where they could pretend to be a normal couple enjoying a normal evening. But now they were back, and the house looming before them represented everything complicated about their relationship. Trevor turned off the engine but didn't immediately move to get out. Can we talk? He asked. Really talk, not just surface level? That's what we need to do, Janelle agreed. But I need to change first. This dress is beautiful, but it's not exactly comfortable for a serious conversation. They entered the house through the main entrance. The foyer was vast, all white marble and expensive art. Their housekeeper had left the lights on low, creating shadows that made the space feel even larger, more impersonal. Janelle kicked off her heels at the bottom of the stairs, feeling immediate relief as her feet touched the cool marble. She carried them up to the bedroom, Trevor following behind her. In the bedroom, Janelle went to her walk-in closet and selected comfortable clothes, soft cotton pants and a simple blue t-shirt. She changed quickly, hanging the red dress carefully. It had become a symbol tonight, a turning point. She wanted to treat it with respect. When she emerged from the closet, Trevor had also changed. He traded his suit for jeans and a gray t-shirt. It was strange seeing him so casual. Trevor usually maintained his CEO appearance even at home, always ready for an unexpected video call or impromptu meeting. Should we sit down? Trevor gestured toward the sitting area in their bedroom, two comfortable chairs positioned near the windows. Actually, I don't want to be in here, Janelle said. This room has too much history from the past 3 weeks. Let's go downstairs. They made their way to the kitchen, a space that felt more neutral. It was huge, all gleaming countertops and professional-grade appliances, far more kitchen than two people needed. But the breakfast nook in the corner had a cozy feeling, a small table where they used to eat weekend breakfast together back when they still did things like that. Janelle sat down at the table. Trevor opened the refrigerator, pulled out a bottle of water, and offered it to her. She accepted, grateful for something to do with her hands. Okay, Janelle said, once Trevor had settled into the chair across from her. You wanted to talk. So talk. Tell me everything. Not just about the past 3 weeks, but about everything that's been building up. Your father, your fears, why you really let Preston get in your head. Trevor took a deep breath. For a long moment, he just sat there, and Janelle wondered if he was going to retreat again, if the walls were going to go back up. But then he started speaking, and once he started, the words poured out. My father was my hero growing up, Trevor began. He built a successful construction company from nothing. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. My mother stayed home, took care of me and my sister Shanice. From the outside, we looked like the perfect family. Janelle listened, not interrupting. This was a story Trevor had never fully told her, and she needed to hear all of it. When I was 15, everything fell apart, Trevor continued. My mother had been having an affair with my father's business partner, a man named Richard who had been around our whole lives. Uncle Richard, we called him. Turns out he'd been sleeping with my mother for 2 years. Trevor, that's awful, Janelle said softly. The worst part was how we found out, Trevor said, his hands clenched on the table. Richard's wife discovered the affair and showed up at our house with evidence. Photos, hotel receipts, everything. She threw it all on our front lawn for the whole neighborhood to see. It was humiliating. How old was Shanice? 12. She didn't really understand what was happening at first. But I understood. I saw my father's face when he came home from work and saw all that evidence scattered across our lawn. He looked destroyed. Trevor paused, taking a sip of water. Janelle could see how much this was costing him to revisit these memories. My mother left that night, Trevor said. Packed a bag and left with Richard. The divorce was brutal. She wanted half of everything and legally she was entitled to it. The business, the house, savings, investments. My father tried to fight it, spent everything he had on lawyers. In the end, she got her half and it destroyed the business. Richard had already pulled out his share when the affair was discovered, so my father was left trying to run a construction company with no capital and no partner. What happened to him? Janelle asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. He went bankrupt within a year. Lost everything. We had to move to a small apartment, and my father took whatever construction jobs he could find. But he was never the same. The betrayal broke something inside him. He started drinking, stopped taking care of himself. 2 years later, he had a heart attack. The doctor said it was stress-related. I'm so sorry, Janelle said, reaching across the table to touch Trevor's hand. He grabbed onto it like a lifeline. I was 17 when he died. Shanice was 14. We went to live with our aunt, but I was so angry. Angry at my mother for destroying our family. Angry at Richard for betraying my father. Angry at my father for giving up. I swore I would never let myself be that vulnerable to another person. But you fell in love with me, Janelle said. I did. And it terrified me, Trevor admitted. Because loving you meant giving you the power to hurt me the way my mother hurt my father. When I started Morrison Industries, when it started to become successful, that fear only grew. I had built something, and suddenly I had something to lose. So you tried to control everything, Janelle said, understanding clicking into place. If you could control every variable including me, then you couldn't be hurt. Exactly, Trevor said. And when Preston started putting those ideas in my head about you and Gerald, it was like confirmation of my worst fears. Here it was happening again. My wife getting too close to another man. History repeating itself. But I'm not your mother, Janelle said firmly. And you're not your father. We're different people in a different relationship. I know that in my head, Trevor said. But in here. He pressed his fist against his chest again, over his heart. In here, the fear is louder than logic. Janelle pulled her hand back, leaning against her chair. Trevor, what you went through was traumatic. What your father went through was horrible. But you can't let his story become our story. You can't punish me for something your mother did. I don't want to, Trevor said desperately. That's not what I want at all. I love you, Janelle. I love you so much it scares me. And that's the problem. Loving you means risking everything. That's what love is, Janelle said. It's always a risk. There are no guarantees. I could leave tomorrow. You could leave tomorrow. Either of us could get sick, could die, could change in ways that make us incompatible. That's life. That's the deal we sign up for when we choose to love someone. How do you live with that uncertainty? Trevor asked. How do you not spend every moment afraid? Because the alternative is worse, Janelle said simply. Living in fear, trying to control everything, building walls to keep people out or keep them in, that's not really living. That's just surviving. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life just surviving our marriage. Trevor was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. What do you want, Janelle? Tell me what you want, and I'll do everything I can to give it to you. This was the moment. This was the conversation they'd been avoiding for years, dancing around with small arguments about small things while the big issues festered underneath. I want my life back, Janelle said. I want to remember what it feels like to be more than just your wife. I want to go back to architecture, actually use my degree, create things that matter. I want to have my own identity again. Done, Trevor said immediately. Whatever you need. Classes, connections, a studio space. I'll support you in any way I can. I want us to go to therapy, Janelle continued. Both couples therapy and individual therapy for you to deal with your father's issues and your trust problems. Trevor hesitated for just a second, then nodded. Okay. I'll find a therapist. We'll both go. I want you to cut Preston out of your life, Janelle said, her voice hardening. Or at least establish serious boundaries with him. He's toxic, Trevor. He's poisoning your mind with his own bitterness, and I won't have that in our marriage. That's fair, Trevor agreed. Preston is my business partner, so I can't completely cut him out, but I can limit our relationship to strictly professional. No more personal conversations about my marriage. And I want you to trust me, Janelle said, her voice cracking slightly. Really trust me. Not just say you do but actually believe it in your heart. I need you to believe that I'm not your mother, that I chose you and keep choosing you every day. I need you to believe that I'm not looking for an escape or another man or any of the things Preston has convinced you I'm doing. I want to trust you, Trevor said. I swear I do. But Janelle, that fear is so deep. It's going to take work to dig it out. Then do the work, Janelle said firmly. Because I can't keep living like this. I can't keep feeling like I'm on trial in my own marriage. I can't keep watching everything I say and do, wondering if it's going to trigger your jealousy or insecurity. I'm exhausted, Trevor. I'm exhausted from trying to be perfect enough that you'll believe I'm not going to leave. I don't need you to be perfect, Trevor said. Yes, you do, Janelle countered. Maybe not consciously, but you do. Any little thing that doesn't fit your idea of how I should behave becomes evidence in your mind that I'm pulling away. Having lunch with male colleagues. Wanting to attend a reunion. Wanting my own career. These are normal things, Trevor. These are things that shouldn't threaten you. Trevor dropped his head into his hands. You're right. You're absolutely right, and I hate that I've made you feel this way. I hate that I've become the kind of man who makes his wife feel like she has to earn his trust instead of deserving it by default. So change, Janelle said. Prove to me that you can be different. Prove to me that our marriage can be different. How? Trevor asked, looking up at her. Tell me specifically what I need to do and I'll do it. You start by keeping your promises, Janelle said. You find a therapist. You set boundaries with Preston. You support my return to architecture without making me feel guilty about it. You stop checking my phone when you think I'm not looking. You stop questioning where I've been when I come home from being out with friends. You stop treating me like I'm the enemy. I don't mean to treat you like the enemy, Trevor said. But you do, Janelle said. For 3 weeks you treated me like I was guilty of something. You shut me out completely. Do you have any idea how lonely that was? How much it hurt to be invisible in my own home? I'm sorry, Trevor said, and there were tears in his eyes now. I'm so sorry, Janelle. You deserved so much better than what I've given you. I still deserve better, Janelle said. And I'm giving you the chance to be better. But Trevor, this is it. This is your one chance. If you go back to those patterns, if you let fear control you again, I'm done. I'll leave and I won't come back. The weight of her ultimatum hung in the air between them. This wasn't an idle threat. Janelle meant every word, and Trevor could see it in her eyes. I understand, Trevor said. And I accept your terms. Therapy, boundaries with Preston, support for your career, trust. I'll work on all of it. I'll do whatever it takes. And if you struggle? Janelle asked. If you have moments where the fear comes back, where you start to doubt me? Then I'll talk to you about it, Trevor said. I'll tell you what I'm feeling instead of shutting you out. I'll remember that you're my partner, not my enemy. I'll choose trust even when fear is screaming at me. Janelle studied his face, looking for any sign of insincerity or manipulation. But all she saw was a man who was genuinely trying, a man who was scared of losing her but willing to face that fear instead of letting it control him. Okay, she said finally. Then we start tomorrow. Fresh start. New patterns. Better communication. Tomorrow, Trevor agreed. They sat there in the kitchen for a long time, not talking, just being together. It wasn't comfortable exactly, but it wasn't awful either. It was the feeling of two people who had been on the edge of a cliff and had decided to step back, to choose each other one more time. Eventually, Janelle stood up. I'm exhausted. Tonight was a lot. Yeah, Trevor agreed, standing as well. It was. They walked upstairs together, a tentative truce between them. In the bedroom, they got ready for bed in silence, each processing everything that had been said. When they finally climbed into bed, Janelle lay on her side, facing away from Trevor. After a moment, she felt him move closer, his arm draping carefully over her waist. Is this okay? He asked quietly. It's okay, Janelle said. And surprisingly, it was. They lay like that, not quite spooning but not quite separate either, finding a middle ground that felt manageable for where they were. Thank you, Trevor whispered in the darkness. For not giving up on us. Janelle didn't respond. She wasn't sure she had anything left to say tonight. But as she drifted off to sleep, she thought about the red dress hanging in the closet, about Rita and the reunion, about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, she and Trevor could find their way back to each other. It was a fragile hope, delicate as a soap bubble. But it was hope nonetheless. And for tonight that was enough. The next morning, Janelle woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. For a moment she was disoriented. Trevor never cooked breakfast. Trevor barely remembered where they kept the coffee filters. She got out of bed and pulled on her robe, then made her way downstairs. In the kitchen, she found Trevor standing at the stove, slightly frazzled, trying to flip bacon without burning it. There was already a plate of somewhat burnt toast on the counter, and coffee brewing in the machine. "You're cooking?" Janelle said, surprised. Trevor turned, a spatula in his hand. "Attempting to cook. There's a difference." He gestured at the toast. "I may have failed at the simplest part." Despite everything, Janelle felt a smile tugging at her lips. "It's the thought that counts." "That's what I'm hoping," Trevor said. He successfully flipped a piece of bacon without setting anything on fire, looking ridiculously proud of himself. "I figured starting fresh means starting with breakfast. Even if it's terrible breakfast." Janelle poured herself a cup of coffee and sat at the breakfast nook. "Where's Elena?" "Their housekeeper usually arrived by 7. "I gave her the day off," Trevor said. "I thought maybe we could use the house to ourselves today. Just us, no staff, no interruptions." It was a small gesture, but it meant something. Trevor acknowledging that they needed privacy, that they needed space to figure things out without an audience. The doorbell rang, interrupting the domestic scene. Trevor frowned. "I'm not expecting anyone." "Me neither," Janelle said. She set down her coffee and went to answer the door, wondering who would show up unannounced on a Sunday morning. When she opened the door, she found Trevor's younger sister Shanice standing there, holding a bag of bagels and looking determined. "Shanice," Janelle said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "Intervention," Shanice said simply, walking past Janelle into the house. She was 30 years old, with her hair cut short and natural, wearing jeans and a bright purple sweater. Where Trevor was buttoned up and controlled, Shanice was open and direct. "I've been watching you two crash and burn for weeks, and I'm done sitting on the sidelines." Trevor appeared from the kitchen, still holding the spatula. "Shanice? What are you doing here?" "Saving your marriage," Shanice said. She set the bag of bagels on the hall table and crossed her arms. "We need to talk. All three of us." "This isn't really a good time," Trevor started, but Shanice cut him off. "There's never a good time for hard conversations, which is why people avoid them until everything falls apart." She looked between Trevor and Janelle. "But judging by the fact that you're both still here and not in separate corners, I'm guessing you had some of those hard conversations last night." "The reunion went well," Janelle said carefully. "We talked afterward. We're trying to work things out." "Good," Shanice said. "That's good. But you're not done. Not by a long shot. So I'm here to make sure you don't backslide into your usual patterns." Trevor set down the spatula. "Shanice, I appreciate the concern, but this is between me and Janelle." "No, it's not," Shanice said firmly. "Because this isn't just about your relationship. This is about the trauma Dad left us with, and you've been carrying that around for 15 years without dealing with it. And now it's poisoning your marriage." Trevor's face went tight. "We don't need to talk about Dad." "Yes, we do," Shanice said. "Because Janelle deserves to understand what she's dealing with. And you deserve to stop pretending like what happened to our family doesn't affect you." Janelle looked between the siblings. There was clearly a long history here, patterns established over decades. "Maybe we should sit down," she suggested. They moved to the living room, a formal space that Janelle had always found too stiff for real conversation. But Shanice made herself comfortable on the couch, kicking off her shoes and tucking her feet under her like she used to do when she was younger. Trevor sat in an armchair, his posture rigid. Janelle sat on the opposite end of the couch from Shanice. "Okay," Shanice said. "Trevor, I'm guessing you told Janelle about Mom and Dad." "Some of it," Trevor admitted. "Did you tell her about the night Dad died?" Shanice asked. Trevor's jaw clenched. "That's not relevant." "It's completely relevant," Shanice countered. She turned to Janelle. "Our father died of a heart attack, but it wasn't just stress. He'd been drinking heavily and he'd stopped taking his blood pressure medication. The night he died, he'd been at a bar, calling Trevor over and over, leaving these rambling voicemails about how all women were liars and how marriage was a trap." Janelle looked at Trevor, whose face had gone pale. "I didn't know that." "I deleted the voicemails," Trevor said quietly. "I didn't want anyone to remember him that way." "But you remember him that way," Shanice said gently. "And that's the problem, Trevor. You've been carrying around this image of Dad as this destroyed, broken man, and you've been terrified of becoming him. So terrified that you're doing exactly what he did. Pushing away the person who loves you because you're convinced they're going to leave anyway." "That's not what I'm doing," Trevor protested. "Isn't it?" Shanice challenged. "Janelle, tell me if I'm wrong. But I'm guessing Trevor has been distant, controlling, suspicious." He's been treating you like you're the enemy instead of his partner. That's exactly what he's been doing, Janelle confirmed. For 3 weeks he completely shut me out. And it all started because his business partner suggested I was being too friendly with a colleague. Shanice nodded. Preston. I told you years ago that man was toxic. Preston has been a loyal friend, Trevor said defensively. Preston is a bitter divorcee who wants everyone else to be as miserable as he is, Shanice shot back. He's been feeding your paranoia for years, Trevor. Every time you have a good moment with Janelle, Preston is there to remind you that marriages fail, that women leave, that you can't trust anyone. He's looking out for me, Trevor said, but his voice lacked conviction. He's making you miserable, Shanice corrected. And he's making Janelle miserable by extension. You need to cut him out of your personal life, keep things strictly professional. Janelle already said that last night, Trevor admitted. Good, Shanice said. She's smarter than you. Listen to her. She turned to Janelle. And you? What are you doing for yourself in all this? Besides trying to fix Trevor's issues. Janelle was surprised by the question. I'm going back to architecture. Taking classes, getting my credentials updated. That's a start, Shanice said. But what about right now? What are you doing today to remember who you are outside of this marriage? Janelle trailed off. She hadn't thought about it. She'd been so focused on whether she and Trevor could fix things that she hadn't considered what she needed in the immediate term. Exactly, Shanice said. You've both gotten so lost in the dysfunction that you've forgotten how to be whole people on your own. Trevor is terrified of being abandoned, so he tries to control everything. Janelle, you've shrunk yourself down so much trying to be the perfect wife that you've disappeared. That's not fair, Trevor said. Janelle hasn't disappeared. When was the last time she made a decision without considering how it would affect you first? Shanice asked. When was the last time she did something just because she wanted to, not because it fit into your schedule or your comfort zone? Trevor opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. He couldn't think of an answer. My point exactly, Shanice said. She turned back to Janelle. I love my brother. He's one of the best people I know. But he's also carrying around a lot of baggage from our childhood, and he's been dumping it all on you. That's not fair, and you don't have to accept it. I gave him an ultimatum last night, Janelle said quietly. Therapy, boundaries with Preston, support for my career. Or I leave. Good, Shanice said. Stick to it. Don't let him talk his way out of it or promise to change without actually changing. Hold him accountable. I will, Janelle promised. Shanice looked at her brother. And you have a decision to make. You can keep carrying Dad's baggage around, letting his failures define your relationships. Or you can do the work to heal, to be better than he was. But you can't have both. You can't keep living in fear and expect to have a healthy marriage. Trevor was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. I don't know how to let it go. The fear, I mean. It's been part of me for so long. That's what therapy is for, Shanice said, her voice softening. You don't have to figure it out alone. Get professional help. Learn how to process what happened to our family without letting it destroy your own family. Will you come with me? Trevor asked Janelle suddenly. To therapy, I mean. Not just couples therapy, but when I go to individual sessions. Just for the first few times until I get comfortable. Janelle was surprised by the vulnerability in his request. If you want me there, I'll be there. I want you there, Trevor said. I want you to understand what I'm working through. I don't want to hide it anymore. Shanice smiled, looking pleased. See? You two can do this. You just need to actually talk to each other instead of assuming you know what the other person is thinking. When did you get so wise? Janelle asked, managing a small smile. I've been in therapy for years, Shanice said. Dealing with my own stuff from Mom and Dad. It helps. A lot. I kept telling Trevor to go, but he was always too busy with the business. I'm not too busy anymore, Trevor said. Nothing is more important than this. Than us. He looked at Janelle when he said it. Shanice stood up. Okay, my work here is done. For now. But I'll be checking in on you too. And Janelle, you have my number. If he backslides, if he goes back to being controlling or cold, you call me. I'll knock some sense into him. I appreciate that, Janelle said, meaning it. And Trevor, Shanice turned to her brother. Dad's story doesn't have to be your story. You're not him. You're better than he was. But you have to choose to be better. Every day. And every moment. Choose trust over fear. Choose love over control. Choose Janelle over the ghosts in your head. Trevor nodded, tears in his eyes. I'll try. Don't try. Do it, Shanice said firmly. Then her expression softened and she hugged her brother tight. I love you. I want you to be happy. And you won't be happy if you let fear run your life. I know, Trevor said, hugging her back. Thank you for coming. That's what family is for, Shanice said. She hugged Janelle next. And your family too. Remember that. You're not alone in this. After Shanice left, taking the bagels with her since Trevor's bacon breakfast had burned while they talked, Janelle and Trevor sat in the living room in silence. She's right, you know, Trevor said finally. About everything. I've been carrying Dad's baggage around. I've been letting fear control me. And I have been making you pay for it. I know, Janelle said. But knowing it and changing it are two different things. I'll change, Trevor promised. I'll find a therapist tomorrow. I'll call Preston and tell him we need to keep our relationship professional. I'll support whatever you need for your architecture career. I'll do the work, Janelle. I swear I will. I hope so, Janelle said. Because I meant what I said last night. This is your one chance. I know, Trevor said. And I won't waste it. They sat together, not touching but not entirely separate either. Two people trying to find their way back to each other with the help of an unlikely ally. Outside the sun was shining. It was the first day of their new beginning, fragile and uncertain, but real. And for now that was enough. If you've ever had to choose between holding on and letting go, you know how hard this moment is. What would you do in Janelle's place? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe to see how their story unfolds. Sometimes the hardest love stories are the ones worth saving. Monday morning arrived too quickly. Trevor had an early meeting at Morrison Industries, something he couldn't cancel. Janelle watched him get dressed in one of his expensive suits, watched him transform back into Trevor Morrison the CEO, and wondered if the man from yesterday, the vulnerable man who had cooked terrible bacon and promised to change, would survive the transformation. I'll be home by 6, Trevor said, nodding his tie. I promise. No late meetings, no unexpected calls. I'll be home. Okay, Janelle said. She was still in bed, wrapped in the sheets, not quite ready to face the day. Trevor sat on the edge of the bed. What are you going to do today? Research, Janelle said. Look into architecture programs, see what I need to do to get back into the field. Maybe reach out to some of my old professors. That sounds good, Trevor said. He hesitated, then leaned over and kissed her forehead. It was a simple gesture, but it felt significant. I love you. I love you too, Janelle said. And she meant it even though love felt complicated right now. After Trevor left, Janelle got up and made herself breakfast. Real breakfast, not burnt toast. She sat at the breakfast nook with her laptop, starting to research what she would need to do to return to architecture after so many years away. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rita. Hey girl, last night was so fun. We need to do lunch soon. How about Friday? Janelle smiled and texted back. Friday works. Can't wait to catch up properly. Another text came through, this one from Shanice. How are you holding up? Need me to come back and referee? I'm okay, Janelle typed back. Trevor went to work. I'm researching architecture programs. Good for you, Shanice replied. Remember, you come first. Your dreams, your needs, your happiness. Don't let anyone, not even my brother, make you forget that. Janelle felt a warmth in her chest reading those words. She'd been so focused on being a good wife, on supporting Trevor's dreams, that she'd forgotten it was okay to put herself first sometimes. She spent the morning researching. There were several programs that offered accelerated courses for professionals looking to update their credentials. Some were online, some were in person. There were also networking groups for architects, professional organizations she could join. The more she researched, the more excited she became. This was possible. She could actually do this. She could return to architecture, could remember what it felt like to create something with her own hands and mind. Around noon, her phone rang. It was Trevor. Hey, she answered. Everything okay? Yeah, everything's fine, Trevor said. I just wanted to check in. Hear your voice. It was such a simple thing, but it meant something. Trevor checking in, making an effort to stay connected instead of disappearing into work for 12 hours. I'm good, Janelle said. I've been researching architecture programs. There's one that looks really promising, an accelerated credential update course that starts next month. That's great, Trevor said, and he sounded genuinely happy. Do you want me to help with anything? Make calls, use connections. Let me do the initial research first, Janelle said. But I might take you up on that later. Whatever you need, Trevor said. Hey, I have to go. Preston just walked into my office. But I'll see you at 6. Trevor, Janelle said before he could hang up. The conversation with Preston. About boundaries. When are you having it? There was a pause. Soon, Trevor said. I promise. Today, Janelle pressed. Have it today. Don't put it off. Another pause, then Trevor said, okay. Today. I'll talk to him today. After they hung up, Janelle felt a mixture of hope and anxiety. Trevor was saying all the right things, but would he follow through? Would he actually set boundaries with Preston, or would he chicken out when faced with his business partner? She tried to focus back on her research, but her mind kept wandering. She thought about the red dress hanging in her closet, about the reunion, about Brandon's complete lack of interest in her and how wrong Trevor's jealousy had been. She thought about Rita and her other friends, people who knew her as Janelle, not as Mrs. Morrison. People who had supported her dreams back when she still believed in them. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was an unknown number. Janelle answered cautiously. Hello. Hi, is this Janelle Morrison? A woman's voice asked. Yes, who's calling? My name is Dr. Sarah Chin. Your husband reached out to my practice this morning about couples therapy and individual counseling. I wanted to call and introduce myself, see if we might be a good fit for your needs. Janelle felt her heart skip. Trevor had actually called a therapist. He'd done it immediately, first thing this morning, before the day could get away from him. Oh, Janelle said, surprised. That's great. Thank you for calling. I have some availability this week if you'd like to schedule an initial consultation, Dr. Chin said. Both individual sessions with Trevor and a joint session with you both. Yes, Janelle said quickly. Yes, we'd like that. They scheduled appointments. Trevor's individual session for Wednesday afternoon, and their first couples session for Thursday evening. Dr. Chin explained her approach, her background, her philosophy on marriage counseling. Janelle found herself liking the woman's calm, straightforward manner. After hanging up, Janelle sat back in her chair, processing. Trevor was following through. He was actually following through on his promises. It had only been one day, but he was taking action. Maybe, just maybe, this could work. The afternoon passed quickly. Janelle got so absorbed in her research that she lost track of time. When she finally looked up, it was almost 5:30. Trevor would be home soon. She went upstairs to change, trading her comfortable clothes for jeans and a nice top. She wanted to look put together when Trevor got home, wanted to show that she was taking this new beginning seriously too. At exactly 6 o'clock, she heard Trevor's car in the driveway. True to his word, he was home on time. Janelle went downstairs to meet him. Trevor walked through the door, loosening his tie, and smiled when he saw her. Hi, he said. Hi, she replied. How was work? Long, Trevor admitted. But productive. I talked to Preston. Janelle's heart beat faster. And? Trevor set down his briefcase and ran a hand through his hair. It didn't go well. He was defensive, said I was letting you control me, that I was making a mistake. But I stood firm. I told him that my marriage is off limits for discussion, that I need him to keep our relationship strictly professional from now on. How did he react? He wasn't happy, Trevor said. But he agreed. Said he'd respect my boundaries, though I could tell he thought I was being an idiot. He looked at Janelle. But I don't care what he thinks. Not about this. Not about us. Janelle felt something loosen in her chest, a tension she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. Thank you. For doing that. I know it wasn't easy. It needed to be done, Trevor said. I should have done it years ago. Dr. Chin called me, Janelle said. We have appointments scheduled. Wednesday for your individual session, Thursday for our couples session. I know, Trevor said. She emailed me this afternoon. I'm nervous about it, but I'm going to go. I'm going to do this. They stood in the foyer, looking at each other, these two people trying to rebuild what they'd almost destroyed. Are you hungry? Janelle asked. I was thinking we could cook dinner together. Actually cook, not order takeout or have Elena prepare something. I'd like that, Trevor said. They moved into the kitchen and started pulling ingredients from the refrigerator and pantry. Neither of them were great cooks, but they managed to put together a simple pasta dish with vegetables. They worked side by side, occasionally bumping into each other, slowly remembering how to exist in the same space. Tell me about the architecture program you're considering, Trevor said as he chopped tomatoes with questionable knife skills. Janelle launched into an explanation of the program, the courses, the timeline. Trevor listened, asking questions, showing genuine interest. It reminded her of their early days together, when they used to talk for hours about their dreams and plans. Over dinner they continued talking. Not about heavy topics or their problems, but about simpler things. Janelle told stories from college that Trevor had never heard. Trevor shared funny incidents from work that had nothing to do with Preston or stress. It wasn't perfect. There were still awkward silences. There were still moments when Janelle could see Trevor's mind wandering to dark places, when his face would tighten with fear before he consciously relaxed it. But they were trying, and that was something. After dinner they cleaned up together, a simple domestic routine that felt strangely healing. Then they moved to the living room, settling on the couch with comfortable distance between them. "Can I ask you something?" Trevor said. "About the reunion, about your friends." "Sure," Janelle said. "When you were with them, when you were laughing and sharing stories, you seemed so happy. Happier than I've seen you in a long time." Trevor looked down at his hands. "Have I been making you unhappy? Not just the last 3 weeks, but in general?" Janelle considered the question carefully. "It's not that you make me unhappy. It's that I've lost myself somewhere along the way. The Janelle who existed before I became your wife, she had her own identity, her own dreams. And somewhere in the process of supporting your career and being Mrs. Morrison, that version of me got buried." "I never wanted that," Trevor said. "I know," Janelle said. "But that's what happened. And I let it happen. I made choices to put your career first, to be supportive, to be the perfect wife. But I forgot to also be Janelle. How do we fix that?" Trevor asked. "We already are," Janelle said. "By having these conversations. By me going back to architecture. By you respecting my boundaries and my independence. By both of us remembering that we're individuals first, partners second." Trevor nodded slowly. "Shanice said something yesterday that stuck with me. She said I've been so afraid of you leaving that I've been pushing you away. And she's right. I've been so focused on protecting myself from potential pain that I've been causing real pain. Fear makes us do strange things," Janelle said. "I understand why you were scared. Your father's story is traumatic. But you're not your father, Trevor. And I'm not your mother. We get to write our own story. I want our story to have a happy ending," Trevor said quietly. "Me too," Janelle said. "But happy endings don't just happen. We have to work for them." They sat together on the couch, gradually moving closer until Janelle was leaning against Trevor's side, his arm around her shoulders. It was the most comfortable they'd been with each other in weeks. "Thank you for not giving up on me," Trevor said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "Thank you for finally showing up," Janelle replied. They stayed like that until late into the evening, not talking much, just being together. Learning how to be in each other's presence without tension or fear. It was a small thing, but it was something. When they finally went to bed, they fell asleep facing each other, hands clasped between them, a fragile connection that felt like the beginning of something new. Outside, the city lights glittered in the darkness. Somewhere in that city, Rita was probably putting her daughter to bed. Simone was probably working on a new design. Brandon was probably helping his kids with homework. And in their mansion on the hill, Janelle and Trevor took another step toward remembering who they were to each other, toward rebuilding what fear had almost destroyed. It was progress. Slow, uncertain progress. But progress nonetheless. Wednesday afternoon, Trevor sat in Dr. Sarah Chen's office, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. The office was comfortable, not at all like the cold, clinical spaces he'd imagined. There were plants on the windowsill, soft lighting, a couch that was actually comfortable. Dr. Chen sat across from him in a simple chair, a notepad in her lap, waiting patiently for him to speak. "I don't know where to start," Trevor admitted. "Start wherever feels right," Dr. Chen said. Her voice was calm, non-judgmental. "There's no right or wrong way to do this. My wife gave me an ultimatum," Trevor said. "Change or she leaves. That's why I'm here." "And what do you want?" Dr. Chen asked. "Apart from what your wife wants?" The question surprised Trevor. "I want to fix my marriage." "That's still about your wife," Dr. Chen pointed out gently. "What do you want for yourself?" Trevor was quiet for a long moment. "I want to stop being afraid all the time. I want to be able to trust my wife without constantly looking for signs that she's going to leave. I want to be the kind of man who deserves her, instead of the kind of man who tries to control her because he's terrified of losing her." "That's a good start," Dr. Chen said. "Tell me about this fear. Where does it come from?" And so Trevor told her. About his father, about his mother's affair, about watching his childhood hero crumble and die. He told her about the voicemails his father had left the night he died, about carrying that trauma around for 15 years, about letting it poison his relationship with Janelle. Dr. Chen listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. When Trevor finished, his voice hoarse from talking, she was quiet for a moment before speaking. "What you experienced was traumatic," she said. Watching a parent go through that kind of betrayal and destruction, that leaves marks. But Trevor, you've been treating your wife like she's your mother. You've been punishing her for something she didn't do. I know, Trevor said miserably. I know that's what I've been doing. But knowing it and stopping it are two different things. They are, Dr. Chin agreed. Which is why we're here. To help you develop tools to manage that fear when it comes up, to recognize when you're reacting to the past instead of the present. They spent the rest of the session working through some of those tools. Breathing exercises for when the fear got overwhelming. Questions to ask himself to reality check his thoughts. Ways to communicate with Janelle when he was struggling instead of shutting down. This won't be fixed in one session, Dr. Chin said as their time came to an end. This is going to be work. Consistent, sometimes difficult work. Are you ready for that? I have to be, Trevor said. Because losing Janelle isn't an option. Make sure you're doing this for yourself, not just for her, Dr. Chin cautioned. Change that comes from fear of loss doesn't last. Change that comes from genuinely wanting to be better, that's sustainable. Trevor thought about that on the drive home. Was he doing this just because Janelle had threatened to leave? Or did he genuinely want to be better, to heal from his past, to become the kind of man who could love without fear? He decided it was both. And that was okay. When he got home, Janelle was in what used to be a guest room. She'd set up a makeshift office there, with her laptop and stacks of papers spread across the desk. She was so focused on whatever she was working on that she didn't hear him come in. Trevor stood in the doorway watching her. This was the Janelle he'd fallen in love with. Focused, passionate, completely absorbed in her work. When had he last seen her like this? Hey, he said softly, not wanting to startle her. Janelle looked up, smiling. Hey, how was therapy? Hard, Trevor admitted. But good, I think. Dr. Chin seems to really understand what I'm dealing with. I'm glad, Janelle said. She gestured at the papers on her desk. I've been working on my application for the architecture program. I need to submit a portfolio of previous work, and I'm trying to find all my old projects from college. Need any help? Trevor offered. Actually, yes, Janelle said. There are some boxes in the attic storage from when we first moved in. I think my college portfolio might be in one of them. They went up to the attic together, a space they rarely entered. It was dusty, full of boxes that had been sitting untouched for years. Trevor opened boxes while Janelle directed him, looking for anything that might contain her old architecture work. Here, Trevor said, pulling out a large portfolio case. Is this it? Janelle opened it and gasped. Inside were dozens of her old projects. Building designs, sketches, blueprints. Things she'd created in college, full of ambition and creativity. I'd forgotten about some of these, she said, carefully pulling out a design for a community center. Professor Martinez loved this one. Said it showed real promise. Trevor looked over her shoulder at the design. It was beautiful, functional, and artistic at the same time. This is incredible, Janelle. Why did you stop? Because you needed me, Janelle said simply. Morrison Industries was growing, and you needed someone you could trust to help manage things. And I wanted to support you. But somewhere along the way, supporting you became my whole identity. I'm sorry, Trevor said. I should have encouraged you to keep going with your own work. We both made choices, Janelle said. I chose to put my dreams on hold. You didn't force me. But now I'm choosing to pick them back up again. They spent the next hour going through the portfolio, Janelle explaining each project, what she'd been trying to achieve, what she'd learned. Trevor listened, asking questions, genuinely interested in this part of her life he'd never really known about. You're going to be amazing, he said when they'd gone through everything. Once you get back into it, you're going to blow everyone away. I hope so, Janelle said. I'm nervous. It's been so long. What if I'm not good anymore? You will be, Trevor said with certainty. This is in your blood, Janelle. I can see it in these designs. You were meant to do this. The next evening, they had their first couples therapy session. They sat next to each other on Dr. Chen's couch, not quite touching but not entirely separate either. Thank you both for coming, Dr. Chen said. I've had a chance to talk with Trevor individually. Janelle, I'd like to hear your perspective on what's been happening in your marriage. Janelle told her side of the story. The 3 weeks of silence, the reunion that sparked a confrontation, years of slowly losing herself in Trevor's shadow. She was honest, not holding back but also not cruel. She explained how she felt without making Trevor the villain. It sounds like you've both lost sight of each other as individuals, Dr. Chin observed. Trevor, you've been seeing Janelle through the lens of your past trauma, not as who she actually is. And Janelle, You've been so focused on being what Trevor needs that you've forgotten to be yourself. That's exactly it, Janelle said. I don't even know who I am anymore outside of being his wife. Then part of your work, both together and individually, will be rediscovering that, Dr. Chin said. Janelle, you're taking steps with the architecture program, which is excellent. But I'd also like you to think about other areas where you've shrunk yourself. Friendships, hobbies, interests. What else have you given up? Janelle thought about it. I used to paint. Nothing serious, just watercolors for fun. I haven't done that in years. And I used to meet friends for lunch regularly, but I stopped because it felt like I was always rushing to get back home, like I needed to be available in case Trevor needed something. Do you see how you've made yourself small? Dr. Chin asked gently. You've arranged your entire life around Trevor's needs and Trevor's schedule. That's not a partnership. That's you disappearing. Janelle felt tears prickling at her eyes. I didn't realize I was doing it. It happens gradually, Dr. Chin said. Small compromises that seem reasonable at the time. But they add up. She turned to Trevor. And you? You've created a situation where Janelle feels like she can't have her own life without threatening you. Every time she tries to be independent, your trauma response gets triggered and you try to pull her back in. Do you see how that's controlling? I do now, Trevor said quietly. I've been treating her like she's my possession instead of my partner. Recognizing it is the first step, Dr. Chin said. Now comes the harder part, actually changing those patterns. Trevor, you're going to have moments where you feel that fear, where you want to control or check up on Janelle. In those moments, what will you do instead? Talk to her, Trevor said. Tell her what I'm feeling instead of acting on it. Use the tools you taught me in our individual session. Good, Dr. Chin said. And Janelle, you're going to have moments where you fall back into old patterns, where you make yourself small to keep the peace. What will you do instead? Assert myself, Janelle said. Remember that my needs matter too. Not give in just to avoid conflict. Excellent, Dr. Chin said. Now let's talk about trust. Trevor, do you trust Janelle? Trevor opened his mouth to say yes automatically, then stopped. I want to. I'm trying to. But honestly, the fear is still there. Every time she goes out without me, every time she talks to another man, part of me panics. Thank you for being honest, Dr. Chin said. That fear isn't going to disappear overnight. But here's what you need to understand. Trust isn't a feeling. It's a choice. You choose to trust Janelle even when the fear is screaming at you not to. You act in trust even when you don't feel it yet. How do I do that? Trevor asked. By not acting on the fear, Dr. Chin explained. When you want to check her phone, you don't. When you want to question where she's been, you don't. When you want to keep her from going out, you don't. You sit with the discomfort, use your coping tools, and let her live her life. Eventually, as you see that your fears don't come true, as you see Janelle continuing to choose you in your marriage, the trust will follow. It sounded so simple when she said it, but Trevor knew it would be the hardest thing he'd ever done. They spent the rest of the session working on communication techniques, ways to check in with each other without it becoming controlling, strategies for handling conflict when it arose. I want to see you both again next week, Dr. Chin said as the session ended. And Trevor, I'll see you for another individual session on Friday. We have a lot more work to do on addressing that childhood trauma. In the car on the way home, Trevor and Janelle were quiet. That was intense, Janelle said finally. Yeah, Trevor agreed. But helpful. I think Dr. Chin really gets it. She does, Janelle said. I like her. I think she's going to help us. We're going to help us, Trevor corrected. She's the guide, but we're the ones who have to do the work. True, Janelle said. She reached over and took Trevor's hand. Are you scared? Terrified, Trevor admitted. But also hopeful. For the first time in years, I actually feel like we might make it. We will, Janelle said. As long as we keep showing up, keep trying, keep choosing each other. They drove home hand in hand, two people beginning to find their way back to each other, beginning to heal from the wounds they'd inflicted and the wounds they'd carried. It wasn't easy. It wouldn't be easy. But it was possible. And right now, possibility was enough. 3 months later, Janelle stood in her new home office, formerly the guest room, putting the finishing touches on her latest architecture project. It was for a class in her credential program, a design for a mixed-use building that combined affordable housing with community spaces. She'd worked on it for weeks, pouring all her creativity and knowledge into every detail. The office looked completely different now. Where there had once been a generic guest bed and bland decorations, there was now a large drafting table, shelves full of architecture books, and walls covered with inspiration images and sketches. It was her space, a physical manifestation of the life she was rebuilding for herself. "That looks incredible," Trevor said from the doorway. She hadn't heard him come in. Janelle turned and smiled. "Thanks. I'm pretty happy with it. My professor is going to review it tomorrow." "He's going to love it," Trevor said with confidence. "How could he not? It's brilliant." These small moments of support had become routine over the past 3 months. Trevor had kept his promise. He'd gone to therapy every week, sometimes twice a week. He'd set firm boundaries with Preston, keeping their relationship strictly professional. He'd supported Janelle's return to architecture without complaint or jealousy. It hadn't been perfect. There had been setbacks. Moments when Trevor's old patterns had resurfaced, when fear had made him want to control or check up on Janelle. But instead of acting on those impulses, he'd learned to name them, to talk about them, to work through them. And Janelle had learned to assert herself, to take up space, to remember that her needs mattered too. She'd started painting again, meeting Rita and her other friends for lunch regularly. She'd even joined a networking group for architects, building professional connections that had nothing to do with Trevor's business empire. Their marriage wasn't fixed, not completely. But it was healing. Day by day, conversation by conversation, they were rebuilding trust and partnership. "Dinner's ready, by the way," Trevor said. "I made that pasta dish you like." "You cooked?" Janelle was surprised. Trevor had been making more of an effort in the kitchen, but he usually stuck to simple things. "Tried to cook," Trevor corrected. "It might be terrible. But I wanted to do something nice for you since you've been working so hard on this project." They went downstairs together. The kitchen table was set, complete with candles. It was sweet, maybe a little over the top, but genuine. Over dinner they talked about their days. Janelle shared her excitement about her project. Trevor talked about a new initiative at Morrison Industries to develop affordable housing, something he'd been inspired to pursue after listening to Janelle talk about her own work. "I've been thinking about something," Trevor said as they cleaned up after dinner. "The company. Morrison Industries. What about it?" Janelle asked, loading dishes into the dishwasher. "It's always been Morrison Industries. My name, my company," Trevor said. "But that's not really accurate, is it? You helped build it too. In the early days you were working just as hard as I was. You gave up your own career to support mine. The company should reflect that." "Trevor, what are you saying?" "I want to change the name," Trevor said. "Morrison Foster Industries. Or Foster Morrison. However you want to do it. I want your name on the building, your name on the letterhead. Because you earned it." Janelle set down the dish she was holding, staring at him. "You're serious?" "Completely serious," Trevor said. "I've already talked to the board. They're supportive. It's a significant change, but it's the right thing to do. You helped build this company and you should be recognized for that." Janelle felt overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Trevor said simply. "Let me do this. Let me acknowledge what you sacrificed, what you contributed. It doesn't make up for everything, but it's a start." "Yes," Janelle said, tears in her eyes. "Yes, okay. Morrison Foster Industries. I like that." Trevor pulled her into a hug, and Janelle let herself lean into him, let herself feel the love that had always been there underneath all the fear and control. "There's something else," Trevor said, pulling back to look at her. "I've been talking to Dr. Chin about my work schedule. About how I've been using work as a way to avoid dealing with my emotions. She helped me see that building the company was partly about trying to be different from my father, trying to prove I wasn't a failure like he was." "You were never a failure," Janelle said firmly. "I know that now," Trevor said. "But I didn't back then. I thought if I could just be successful enough, wealthy enough, powerful enough, then I'd be safe. No one could hurt me if I had all that armor." "But the armor kept everyone out," Janelle said. "Including me." "Including you," Trevor agreed. "So I'm making a change. I'm cutting back my hours. Delegating more. I've hired a COO to handle day-to-day operations. I'm still the CEO, still involved in major decisions, but I'm not working 70-hour weeks anymore." Janelle was stunned. "Trevor, the company is your life." "No," Trevor said. "It was my shield. But you're my life. This marriage is my life. And I can't be the partner you deserve if I'm always at the office avoiding my feelings." "I don't know what to say," Janelle said again. "You don't have to say anything," Trevor said. "I'm not doing this for praise. I'm doing it because it's what I should have done years ago. I'm doing it because I want to be present in our marriage, not just physically but emotionally." They finished cleaning up the kitchen in comfortable silence, then moved to the living room. It had become their routine to spend evenings together, Not always talking, sometimes just being in the same space while they each did their own thing. Tonight, though, Janelle had something on her mind. "I got a call today," she said. "From a firm downtown. Sterling and Associates. They design sustainable, affordable housing." "I know them," Trevor said. "Good reputation." "They want to interview me," Janelle said. "For a senior architect position. Someone saw my work at a networking event and recommended me." Trevor's face lit up. "Janelle, that's amazing. When's the interview?" "Next week," Janelle said. "But Trevor, I'm nervous. What if I'm not good enough? What if I've been out of the field too long?" "You're more than good enough," Trevor said. "You're brilliant. And any firm would be lucky to have you." "But what if I get the job?" Janelle asked. "What if it conflicts with company events or charity functions? What if being a working architect doesn't fit with being Mrs. Morrison?" Trevor took her hands. "Then we figure it out. Together. Your career isn't less important than mine. If there's a conflict, we compromise. We find a solution that works for both of us. That's what partners do." "You really mean that?" Janelle said. It wasn't a question. "I really do," Trevor confirmed. "I want you to take that interview. I want you to get that job. I want you to be Janelle Foster Morrison, the architect. Not just my wife, but a person with your own identity and achievements." Janelle felt something shift inside her. For so long, she'd been waiting for permission to be herself, waiting for Trevor to allow her to have her own life. But she didn't need permission. She never had. She just needed to claim it for herself. "I'm going to nail that interview," she said, a smile spreading across her face. "I'm going to show them exactly what I can do." "That's my girl," Trevor said, grinning. They spent the rest of the evening planning for the interview, Trevor helping Janelle prepare answers to potential questions, talking through her portfolio. It felt like the early days of their relationship, when they'd been partners in every sense of the word, supporting each other's dreams equally. Later that night, as they got ready for bed, Trevor's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. "It's Preston," he said. "Are you going to answer it?" Janelle asked, watching him carefully. Trevor looked at the phone for a long moment, then declined the call. "No. It's late. If it's work-related, he can call during business hours. If it's personal, I'm not interested." It was a small thing, but it meant everything. Trevor choosing boundaries, choosing their evening together over Preston's intrusion. "I'm proud of you," Janelle said. "I'm trying," Trevor said. "Every day I'm trying to be better than I was yesterday." They climbed into bed, and for the first time in years, Janelle felt completely at peace. She wasn't naive enough to think all their problems were solved, that they wouldn't face challenges in the future. But they'd proven they could work through hard things. They'd proven they could change, grow, become better versions of themselves. "I love you," Janelle said in the darkness. "I love you too," Trevor replied. "Thank you for not giving up on us." "Thank you for finally showing up," Janelle said. They fell asleep tangled together, two people who had almost lost everything but had found their way back to each other through honesty, therapy, hard work, and love. Outside, the city stretched out below their hilltop home, millions of lights representing millions of lives. And in their bedroom, Janelle and Trevor slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that they were writing their own story now, not repeating the tragedies of the past. The morning of Janelle's interview, she woke up before her alarm. Nervous energy coursed through her body as she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Trevor was still asleep beside her, one arm draped across her waist. She carefully extracted herself from the bed and went to her closet. She'd spent hours the night before deciding what to wear. Too formal would seem like she was trying too hard. Too casual would seem like she didn't take it seriously. She finally settled on tailored navy pants and a cream blouse, professional but not stuffy. In the bathroom, she took extra care with her hair and makeup. She wanted to look confident, capable, like someone who belonged in a professional architecture firm. When she emerged from the bathroom, Trevor was awake, sitting up in bed. "You look perfect," he said. "I'm terrified," Janelle admitted. "You're going to be amazing," Trevor said. He got out of bed and wrapped her in a hug. "Just remember who you are. Remember all those incredible designs in your portfolio. Remember why you fell in love with architecture in the first place. Let that passion shine through." "When did you become so good at pep talks?" Janelle asked, smiling against his chest. "I've been practicing," Trevor said. "Dr. Chin says I need to work on emotional support instead of trying to fix everything with money or solutions." Janelle pulled back to look at him. "You've been practicing giving me pep talks?" "I want to be the partner you deserve," Trevor said simply. "That means learning how to support you emotionally, not just financially." Janelle kissed him, a soft, sweet kiss that held years of love and recent healing. Thank you. The interview was at 10. Janelle arrived 15 minutes early, her portfolio tucked under her arm, her heart pounding. The Sterling & Associates office was in a converted warehouse downtown, all exposed brick and large windows. It was exactly the kind of space Janelle had always imagined working in. The receptionist greeted her warmly and showed her to a conference room. Within minutes, 3 people entered, 2 senior architects and the firm's managing partner. Ms. Foster Morrison, the managing partner, a woman named Diane Sterling, extended her hand. Thank you so much for coming. I've heard wonderful things about your work. The interview lasted 2 hours. They asked about her design philosophy, her experience, her vision for affordable housing. Janelle found herself relaxing as she talked, her passion for architecture flowing naturally. She showed them her portfolio, walking them through each project, explaining her thought process and problem-solving approaches. The senior architects asked technical questions, challenging her on some of her design choices. But instead of getting defensive, Janelle engaged with their critiques, explaining her reasoning and showing how she'd balanced aesthetic considerations with practical constraints. I have to be honest, Diane said near the end of the interview. When we first learned you were married to Trevor Morrison, we were concerned you might be dabbling in architecture as a hobby. But it's clear this is a genuine passion for you. Your work is exceptional. Architecture has always been my first love, Janelle said. I put it on hold for several years to support my husband's business, but I'm ready to return to it full-time now. We'd love to have you, Diane said. The position is yours if you want it. Senior architect, leading our affordable housing division. Full benefits, competitive salary, and the creative freedom to shape our projects. Janelle felt her breath catch. They were offering her the job. Right here, right now. No waiting, no second interview. They wanted her. I accept, Janelle said, a huge smile spreading across her face. Thank you so much for this opportunity. They spent the next 30 minutes discussing logistics, start dates, project assignments. Janelle would begin in 2 weeks, giving her time to finish her current course and prepare for the transition. When she finally left the office, she felt like she was floating. She had a job. A real architecture job at a firm she respected, doing work she believed in. She wasn't just Mrs. Morrison anymore. She was Janelle Foster Morrison, architect. She called Trevor immediately. How did it go? He answered on the first ring. I got it, Janelle said, unable to keep the excitement out of her voice. They offered me the job and I accepted. I knew it, Trevor said, and she could hear the genuine joy in his voice. I'm so proud of you. We have to celebrate. Dinner tonight, wherever you want to go. Actually, Janelle said, I have a better idea. Let's cook dinner together. Just us. I want to celebrate with my partner, not in some fancy restaurant with photographers watching. I love that idea, Trevor said. I'll leave work early. We can stop by the market together, pick out ingredients. You're leaving work early? Janelle teased. Trevor Morrison, who are you and what have you done with my workaholic husband? He's learning, Trevor said. Slowly but surely he's learning that there are more important things than work. That evening they did exactly what they'd planned. Trevor left the office at 3, something that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. They went to the farmer's market together, picking out fresh vegetables and fish. They laughed as they tried to remember how to select a ripe avocado, both of them so used to having staff handle shopping that they'd forgotten basic skills. At home they cooked together, making a mess of the kitchen but enjoying every minute. They opened a bottle of wine, toasted to new beginnings, and talked about what Janelle's new job would mean for their life. I'm a little scared about how this will change things, Janelle admitted as they sat down to eat. My schedule will be different. I'll have deadlines and projects. I won't be as available for company events. We'll figure it out, Trevor said. That's what we do now. We communicate, we compromise, we support each other. If you have a big deadline, I step up at home. If I have a crucial business trip, you do the same. We're partners, Janelle. Equal partners. After dinner, they settled on the couch, Janelle's head resting on Trevor's shoulder. I've been thinking, Trevor said. About the red dress. What about it? Janelle asked. The night I tried to stop you from going to the reunion, the night I stood in front of that door like an idiot, I was so focused on control that I couldn't see what I was really afraid of. Which was what? That you'd realize you didn't need me, Trevor said. That you'd remember who you were before you knew me and you'd decide you liked that version better. That you'd leave me for a better life. But I didn't leave, Janelle said. No, you didn't, Trevor agreed. Even though I gave you every reason to. You stayed. You gave me a chance to be better. And these past 3 months have shown me something important. What's that? That you being independent, having your own career, your own identity, doesn't threaten our marriage. It strengthens it, Trevor said. The version of you that's going to start work at Sterling and Associates in 2 weeks, the version that's passionate and confident and fully herself, that's the version I want to be married to. Not some diminished version that exists only to support me. Janelle felt tears pricking at her eyes. That means a lot. I mean it, Trevor said. I'm excited to see what you do at Sterling. I'm excited to be married to an architect who's changing the world. I'm excited for us to both be fully ourselves while still choosing each other every day. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just being together. Then Janelle's phone rang. It was Rita. Girl, congratulations. Rita said when Janelle answered. Shanice just texted me about your new job. I'm so proud of you. Thanks, Janelle said, smiling. It still doesn't feel real. We need to celebrate properly, Rita said. Lunch this weekend? Bring Trevor if he wants to come. Anthony and I want to hear all about it. That sounds perfect, Janelle said. After she hung up, Trevor raised an eyebrow. Shanice texted Rita? They've been talking, Janelle said. Shanice has been checking in on me regularly, making sure you're holding up your end of things. Of course she has, Trevor said, but he was smiling. My sister, the marriage counselor. She cares about you, Janelle said. She wants us to be happy. We are happy, Trevor said. For the first time in a long time, we actually are. As the evening wore on, Janelle found herself reflecting on how much had changed in 3 months. The red dress still hung in her closet, a reminder of the night that had almost ended everything but had instead saved everything. She'd worn it once since then to a charity gala where Trevor had introduced her as his wife, the architect, not just as Mrs. Morrison. The mansion didn't feel like a prison anymore. It felt like a home, a space she and Trevor were learning to share as equals. Her office upstairs was proof that she had her own place here, her own identity within their life together. But more than the physical changes, there were emotional ones. Trevor no longer checked her phone. He didn't question where she'd been or who she'd talked to. When she went out with friends, he genuinely encouraged her to have fun instead of waiting anxiously for her to come home. And Janelle had learned to assert herself, to speak up when something bothered her instead of letting it fester. She'd learned that she could be Janelle and Mrs. Morrison, that those identities didn't have to be mutually exclusive. Their marriage wasn't perfect. They still had moments of friction, still had to work through disagreements. But now they had the tools to handle those moments. They communicated. They listened. They remembered that they were on the same team. Dr. Chin had told them in their last session that they were doing remarkably well. That the work they'd put in was paying off, that their marriage was stronger now than it had probably ever been. You've both grown so much, Dr. Chin had said. Trevor, you've faced your trauma instead of letting it control you. Janelle, you've reclaimed your identity and your voice. And together, you've learned how to be partners in the truest sense. Now, sitting on the couch with Trevor, Janelle felt grateful. Grateful that she'd stood up for herself that night 3 months ago. Grateful that Trevor had been willing to change. Grateful for Shanice's intervention, for Dr. Chen's guidance, for Rita's friendship. What are you thinking about? Trevor asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. How lucky we are, Janelle said. That we got a second chance. Not every couple does. We're lucky, Trevor agreed. But it's not just luck. We worked for this. We're still working for it. True, Janelle said. And I'm willing to keep working for it. For us. Me too, Trevor said. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Every single day. Later that night, as they were getting ready for bed, Janelle's phone buzzed. It was an email from Sterling and Associates with her formal offer letter and new hire paperwork. She opened it, reading through all the details. Her title, her salary, her start date. It was real. It was happening. Trevor read over her shoulder. Look at that salary, he said. You're going to be making serious money. Not as much as you, Janelle pointed out. So what? Trevor said. It's your money. From your career. That you earned. I'm proud of you. Janelle pulled up her banking app. Over the years, all their money had gone into joint accounts or accounts in Trevor's name. She'd never had her own separate finances. I'm going to open my own account, she said. For my salary. I want to have my own financial independence. She watched Trevor's face carefully, looking for any sign of the old controlling behavior. But all she saw was support. That makes sense, Trevor said. You should have your own money, your own financial autonomy. Do you want me to connect you with our financial advisor to help set it up? I can handle it, Janelle said. But thank you for offering. See, Trevor said. We're getting good at this. You asserting your independence, me supporting it instead of feeling threatened. We're becoming pros. Janelle laughed. Let's not get overconfident. We're still in therapy for a reason. Fair point, Trevor conceded. But we're doing better. That counts for something. As they climbed into bed, Janelle thought about the journey they'd been on. From that terrible night with the red dress, through weeks of therapy and hard conversations, to this moment of new beginnings. She thought about her new job starting in 2 weeks. About the projects she would work on, the buildings she would design, the difference she could make in creating affordable, beautiful housing for people who needed it. She thought about Trevor, about how he'd changed, about how they'd both changed. They weren't the same people who had gotten married 5 years ago. They weren't even the same people who had stood in their bedroom 3 months ago, fighting over a dress and a reunion. They were better, stronger, more honest with themselves and with each other. Just as Janelle was drifting off to sleep, her phone rang. She grabbed it from the nightstand, seeing an unknown number. Hello, she answered sleepily. Miss Foster Morrison? An unfamiliar voice said. This is Jennifer Park from Architectural Digest. I hope I'm not calling too late. Janelle sat up, suddenly wide awake. Architectural Digest? Yes, we're doing a feature on emerging architects who are focusing on sustainable, affordable housing, Jennifer said. Your name came up in our research and we'd love to interview you for the piece. Would you be interested? Janelle looked at Trevor, who was watching with curiosity. Yes, she said, her heart racing. Yes, I'd be very interested. They scheduled a time for the interview and Janelle hung up in shock. What was that about? Trevor asked. Architectural Digest wants to interview me, Janelle said, still not quite believing it. For a feature on emerging architects. Janelle, that's incredible, Trevor said, pulling her into a hug. I'm so proud of you. You haven't even started your new job yet, and you're already being recognized. I can't believe this is happening, Janelle said. 6 months ago, I was just Mrs. Morrison, floating through life without any identity of my own. And now I have a job at a prestigious firm, I'm being interviewed by Architectural Digest, I have my own dreams again. You were never just Mrs. Morrison, Trevor said. You were always Janelle. You just forgot for a while. But you remembered. And now look at you. You're taking over the world. Janelle laughed, feeling giddy with excitement and possibility. Not quite taking over the world. But maybe making a small dent in it. That's how it starts, Trevor said. Small dent by small dent until you've changed everything. They settled back into bed, Janelle's mind racing with all the possibilities ahead of her. New job, magazine interviews, projects that could make a real difference. It was almost too much to process. Trevor, she said in the darkness. Yeah. Thank you. For changing. For trying. For becoming the partner I needed you to be. Thank you for not giving up on me, Trevor said. For seeing past my fear to who I could be. For giving me the chance to prove I could be better. We saved each other, Janelle said. That's what partners do. They fell asleep holding hands, two people who had almost lost everything but had found their way back to each other and to themselves. The red dress still hung in the closet, a symbol of the night their lives had changed. But it was no longer a symbol of control or fear or conflict. Now it was a reminder of courage, of standing up for yourself, of refusing to be diminished. Janelle would wear it again, she decided. But next time it would mean something different. Next time, it would be a celebration of who she'd become, a woman who had reclaimed her identity, her dreams, and her power. And Trevor, sleeping peacefully beside her, would support her wearing it, would celebrate her confidence, would be proud to stand beside a woman who was fully, completely, unapologetically herself. 3 months ago, their marriage had been on the brink of collapse. Now it was stronger than ever, built on a foundation of honesty, trust, and mutual respect. They had a long way to go still. Healing was an ongoing process, not a destination. But they were on the right path, moving forward together, partners in every sense of the word. Outside the window, the first hints of dawn were beginning to lighten the sky. A new day was coming, full of possibilities and promise. And Janelle and Trevor were ready to face it together.